My name is Henry. I am 92 years old, and I want to tell you something before I go. And if this video appeared on your screen, if something in you stopped and clicked on it, do not call that random. At my age, I have lived too long to believe every door opens by accident. Maybe you were meant to hear this. Maybe there is something in my life you need to learn before it becomes your life too. People think old men are frightened of death. Some are, but that is not what keeps me awake. What keeps me awake is something worse. It is the knowledge that I spent most of my life punishing my own son for a betrayal that never happened. I buried my wife carrying a secret shame, and I nearly died before I understood that the villain in my story was never the man I suspected. It was me. From the outside, my life looked respectable. I worked hard. I stayed married. I built a business. I kept food on the table. I wore the right suits, said the right things, shook the right hands. Nobody would have guessed that under every family photograph, every Christmas dinner, every church Sunday, there was one poisoned thought rotting everything from the inside. One anonymous letter, one suspicion, one weakness in my pride. That was all it took. People imagine a life falls apart with a crash. They are wrong. Sometimes it falls apart quietly, while everyone is still sitting at the table. I was 39 when the letter came. Plain envelope. No name. No return address. Just my address typed badly on the front, like whoever sent it did not want their handwriting recognized. I almost threw it away with the other junk mail. I wish to God I had. Instead, I opened it standing in the hallway beside the coat rack, while my youngest son was upstairs singing to himself. It was only 6 sentences long. 6. That was enough to poison the next 50 years of my life. It said, "Your youngest boy is not yours. Ask your wife about Thomas. Everyone in town knew except you. Look at the dates. Look at the child's face. You are raising another man's son." That was all. No proof. No signature. No mercy. And here is the worst truth I know how to tell. I was ready for it. Not ready in the sense that I expected it. Ready in the sense that some weak and ugly corner of me had always feared something like it. My wife Margaret was beautiful in a quiet way. Not flashy. Not the kind of beauty that begged for attention. Worse than that. The kind that drew it without trying. Men noticed her. I noticed them noticing. Thomas was an old friend of mine, the easy kind of man I never knew how to be. He laughed easily, touched shoulders when he spoke, made children like him in minutes, and women feel seen without even trying. I was the opposite. Serious, controlled, stiff. The kind of man who thinks dependability should count for more than charm. So when I read that letter, it did not enter an empty mind. It entered a mind with old insecurities already waiting for it. Margaret and I had 3 children, 2 daughters first, then a son we did not expect so late. Daniel, he was the surprise baby, the one who arrived when we thought those years were already behind us. He had dark hair when the girls were fair. He laughed loud. He smiled crooked. As a small boy, he followed me everywhere. If I went to the shed, he came behind me. If I sat in my chair, he sat on the floor near my feet. He wanted to hand me tools, carry my briefcase, or my shoes, become me. Before that letter, I loved him fiercely. After that letter, everything changed shape. His face became evidence. His voice became evidence. His differences became evidence. Margaret speaking kindly to Thomas at church socials became evidence. The timing of an old work trip became evidence. Once suspicion enters a man, it becomes hungry. It can feed on anything. I did not confront Margaret right away. That would have required honesty. Instead, I watched her. That is what cowards do when they want to feel noble. I watched how she moved around Thomas. I watched Daniel's face. I watched dates on a calendar from years ago, as if numbers would somehow confess what people would not. Margaret noticed the change before anyone else. Of course she did. Wives always know when the man sleeping beside them has gone somewhere they cannot follow. She asked me what was wrong. I said work. She asked again a week later. I said I was tired. She touched my hand one night in bed and said, "Henry, wherever you've gone, come back." I still remember the ceiling above us, the dark, the chance I had in that moment to save everything by just speaking plainly. Instead, I kept quiet. Finally, after 2 months, I showed her the letter. I had imagined that moment over and over. I thought I would study her face and know at once whether she was guilty. Instead, she read it once, folded it carefully, and looked at me with a kind of hurt I had never seen before. Not panic, not fear, hurt. Then she asked me, very softly, "Do you believe this?" The whole course of my life turned on my answer. I should have said no. I should have said I was ashamed for even bringing it to her. I should have said I was shaken and needed her help to understand why it had gotten inside me. Instead, I said, "I don't know." Such small words. They destroyed everything. Her face changed. She did not scream. That would have been easier. She just looked at me as if something inside her had cracked. "After everything," she said, "you don't know?" I asked her about Thomas. She said there was nothing to ask. I asked why Daniel looked different. She gave a broken little laugh and said, "Because children are not copies, Henry." I asked where she had been one afternoon years earlier when Thomas had fixed our back fence while I was away. Even saying that now makes me feel ashamed. She stood there in the kitchen, hands at her sides, and said, "You have already decided who I am." She was right. I had. But instead of hearing truth, I heard evasion. That was the beginning. Not an affair, not a confession. A suspicion I refused to bury. Margaret stayed. That is one of the hardest things for me to live with now. She stayed. She could have left. She did not. Maybe because of the children. Maybe because she still loved me. Maybe because she thought time would return me to my senses. But suspicion does not grow kinder with time. It hardens. It starts to sound like reason. I never struck Daniel. I never called him a bastard. I never said the words out loud. What I did was quieter, which in some ways is worse. I was stricter with him than with the girls. I doubted him faster, praised him less. If he spilled milk, I called him careless. If the girls did, I said accidents happen. If he came home late, I saw disrespect. If the girls did, I saw youth. I made every mistake heavier on his shoulders than it needed to be, because some ugly part of me was always measuring him against a crime he had never committed. He kept trying for years. That is what breaks me now. He kept trying. He brought home school papers and looked at my face before he looked at the grade. He showed me a wooden birdhouse he built, crooked and ugly and perfect because his hands had made it. He won a debate prize at school and waited up to show me the ribbon. Every time his eyes asked the same question, "Am I enough now?" And every time my answer was colder than it should have been. Margaret fought me for years, though never in front of the children. At night, in our room, she would say, "He feels it." She would say, "You are making him pay for your imagination." She would say, "One day you will not be able to undo this." I told her she was protecting a lie. She told me she was protecting our son. She always said our son. I always heard accusation in it. By the time Daniel was 16, he had gone quiet. That is when a father should be afraid, not when a boy shouts, when he stops, when he becomes polite, when he no longer believes there is any point in trying to reach you. At 18, he left for college. He came home for the holidays because his mother asked him to, never because of me. He was courteous, respectful, distant. Politeness can hide a wound so deep it has stopped bleeding. Then Margaret got sick. Not all at once. Quietly. Pills on the counter. More appointments. More fatigue. Scarves and warm weather. The house seemed to dim around her, like the light was pulling back slowly before any of us were ready to admit what was happening. The week before she died, she asked to speak to me alone. I thought, shamefully, that maybe she was finally going to confess. Even then, even after everything, some part of me still preferred suspicion to humility. She handed me a sealed envelope with my name on it and said, "Open it after the funeral. And before you speak to Daniel again, read every word." Then she turned her face toward the window. That was the last private thing she ever said to me. I opened the envelope the night after the funeral, sitting alone at the kitchen table where she had fed us for 40 years. Inside were 3 things: a letter from Margaret, a laboratory report, and a handwritten note from Thomas. I read Margaret's letter first. "Henry, if you are reading this, then I ran out of time waiting for you to come back to us. Daniel is your son. He always was. I know because I never betrayed you. But words stopped mattering to you a long time ago. So I did what I should have done years earlier. 2 years ago, when you were in the hospital, I sent samples for DNA testing. Read the result. Then read Thomas's note. Then ask yourself what kind of man trusts an insane lie more than the woman who has shared his whole life. My hands were already shaking before I looked at the report. Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. I stared at that number until it blurred. Then I opened Thomas's note. He had written what Margaret had been trying to tell me for half a lifetime. He had sent the anonymous letter. He had been drunk, jealous, bitter, and angry that Margaret had chosen me over him. Daniel was never his. Margaret had never touched him. He said he meant only to wound my pride, but admitted maybe he knew exactly what kind of man I was. Exactly what a man like me would do once suspicion gave him a reason to feel injured. I did not know how long I sat there. The kitchen went dark around me. Every year of my marriage rearranged itself in one night. Every look Margaret had given me, every argument, every time she said our son, every careful smile on Daniel's face, every holiday where he stood slightly outside the warmth. It all changed at once, and then the true horror arrived. Margaret had not died carrying the shame of betrayal. She had died carrying the wound of not being believed. The woman I loved most had spent decades beside a husband who chose an anonymous lie over her voice, her face, her life, her word. I had made her defend her innocence inside her own marriage until death did what trust should have done years earlier. That night, I got down on my knees beside the kitchen chair, not because I was a holy man, because I had nowhere else to fall. The next morning, I drove to Daniel's house with the envelope beside me. He was 56 then, gray at the temples. My son's face was finally impossible to deny, and I had wasted years refusing to see it. When he opened the door, he looked surprised, then cautious. I asked if I could come in. He let me. He was kinder than I deserved. I put the papers on the table and told him everything. The letter, my suspicion, his mother's proof, Thomas's confession. He did not interrupt me once. When I finished, he looked at the DNA report, then at me, and asked, "So all those years, you thought I wasn't yours?" I said yes. He nodded once, very calm. Then he asked the question that shattered whatever pride I had left. Would it have made a difference if I wasn't? I had no answer, because a decent father does not need blood to love the child he has raised. And I had used blood as an excuse for withholding what should never have been conditional. Daniel forgave me in time. People hear that and think the story becomes beautiful. It doesn't. Forgiveness is not the same as repair. A son can forgive you and still carry the shape of your distance in his bones. A wife can die loving you and still die wounded by you. Some damage does not disappear. It simply becomes survivable. So this is what I want to tell you before I go. Be careful what you do with wounded pride. A lie from outside can only destroy your life if it finds something weak already waiting inside you. Mine was this: I would rather feel suspicious than vulnerable. I would rather protect my ego than risk the humility of trust. I called it caution. I called it dignity. I called it self-respect. It was cowardice, pure cowardice. Suspicion can feel intelligent. It can feel like strength. It can dress itself up as wisdom and tell you that doubt is safer than love. But if you let it stay too long, it will not merely question the people around you. It will make you cruel to them, quietly, respectably, in ways that leave no bruise anyone else can point to, but wounds all the same. My name is Henry. I am 92 years old. And before I go, this is my confession. The worst mistake of my life was not believing a lie. It was loving my pride more than the people telling me the truth. If this video found you, do not ignore the person in your life who is exhausted from trying to prove what should already be sacred between you. Do not turn your home into a courtroom. Do not make someone who has loved you faithfully spend years defending themselves against a ghost. Ask the question early. Speak plainly. Listen while the person is still there to answer. Because when the truth comes late, it does not come to heal. It comes to show you, in terrible detail, exactly what your doubt already destroyed.